Hi, everybody, and welcome to the January 12th Open Space Committee meeting. I'm Adam Young. I'm going to lead the agenda today. I'll be reading a brief snippet about this remote meeting. In accordance with the provisions allowed by Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the January 12th, 2022, which I am noticing in the agenda is wrong, public meeting of the Lakeville Open Space Committee will be held remotely. To view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM. The meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at LakeCAM.tv. I'll begin by conducting a roll call of Open Space Committee members in attendance today. I'll see you on the screen. I'll say your name and please indicate you're present. Mike Schroeder.
Present.
Liz Nash.
Present.
Brian Reynolds.
Present.
Gary Flaherty.
Here.
And Fred Ferdima. I saw him say present, but I didn't hear him. Can we hear you?
Hang on, present.
Excellent. Thank you. And for non-committee members in attendance, I see we have Joan Morton in attendance. Are you on the line, Joan? She may be here and checking back with us later on. In any event, we have a full house today, so that's great. What we'll start off by doing is catching up on some meeting minutes. These have been sent out in advance. Has anyone here not had the opportunity to review the minutes? I'll take that silence, meaning everyone has reviewed them. We'll go through them starting with the October minutes. Excuse me. And I'll open the floor to anyone who has any revisions to the minutes, and then we'll vote on them after that. So without further ado, does anyone have anything to change about the October minutes in front of you?
The October minutes, I don't have anything really to change, except that it talks about the Montgomery property and said that it was one of the properties that had been a priority. But I can't remember, was it at this meeting that we also discussed that it was a corner lot and had a lot of wetland and was actually, while the whole, that big area is a priority, that one corner was probably the least priority of the property.
So just to begin, I want to make sure everyone can hear you, because at least on my end, you sound a bit muffled. I hope there's nothing on your microphone, or if you
Yeah, she sounded muffled to me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had that complaint before. I don't, at a meeting last week.
Now you're good.
Yeah, a moment ago, when you said you've had it before, I think maybe you just speaking up helped.
I wonder if also leaning forward, being right over the microphone.
Yeah, that might help. I think it's important to hear you. Could you restate what your comment was?
According to the minutes, we discussed the Montgomery property as to whether or not it was something that was on a priority list.
Right.
And the minutes say that we said that it was, that apparently you had checked into it, Adam, and it said that it was. I just wanted to make sure that somewhere it was noted that we had discussed it and had decided that because it is that it was really not that big a priority, that we do have to, well, we have to ration our priorities a bit.
Right, exactly.
Because
Yep.
it was a corner lot and had a lot of wetland on it. I think we had decided that this is not one that we would urge.
Right, and that could potentially be a typo, or perhaps we weren't clear in our discussion, because my memory of that property is that it was not on our property priority list for various reasons. As you said, we need to ration our priorities. And so although we certainly want to make sure that open space is preserved, I think this was not one of the priority properties. And so I'll recommend we change that to saying that that property is not on that list.
The general area is, though, so it's.
Yeah, I don't have a map view available. I just know that when we created a priority property list, that one wasn't on it. I can I can check that list again, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident in my memory that that wasn't on the list. Does anyone else here remember the conversation or have any input about it?
I wasn't familiar with the property, so I didn't make any comments.
Right. Mike, are you saying that the property should or should not be on the priority list? Because I've already, a couple months ago now, confirmed that it was not on our priority list.
It is really hard to be succinct about this type of thing, but sometimes you have, it was an undeveloped piece that was right next to a very large undeveloped piece. But it was, if you had to put all of the lots together, and that area is significant. But this was a corner edge of it. And because it is surrounded on two sides by street, it has a lot of wetland. It was not the main part of the property.
Okay. So we'll correct that to say that just to be succinct, the property is not on that list. But if this property or adjacent properties again come before the committee, we'll speak to that nuance. But for now, we'll continue. Is there anything else to say about the October minutes? All right. I haven't heard anything said. I'll note that in these minutes, it does indicate that we voted for Gary to be to join the committee. However, despite the fact that yes, we went through that process, we weren't actually allowed to do so yet. We had to notify in advance that we would do so, and so we postponed his official recommendation until November, by my recollection. So I will advocate that we strike that from the new business section, and instead you'll see it actually is already in the November minutes. So no harm done there. And I'll replace that with Gary was in attendance and has requested to join the committee. The committee agreed to put the topic to a vote in the November meeting. The only remaining item on the October minutes that caught my eye was one of the last, in the last section, right before where it says procedural details. There's a one-line sentence, check in on the Peach Barn. I know the Peach Barn is something that we've spoken about, but I don't know what this comment is referencing. Unless anyone can remember exactly what the topic of that conversation was, I'll recommend we remove that from the minutes.
I think the roof caved in.
Oh.
I think that what's maybe being discussed is repairing the building, repairing the roof. I don't know where that stands.
Okay. So just to clarify, are you saying that this is what we spoke about in October, or are you saying that this is something that is happened more recently since then?
No,
Well, it had already happened in before October. I don't know if we talked about it or not.
It was brought up in October, the roof.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'll recommend we change this line that says check in on the Peach Barn to it was noted that the Peach Barn roof had collapsed and conversation took place about repairing it.
Actually, Adam, you should say not that it had collapsed, but that it was reported that it had collapsed. And we were going to check in to make sure that it was taken care of.
So just to be clear, Mike, because it sounds like you are kind of far away, you said that it was reported that the roof had collapsed. It was reported that the Peach Barn roof had collapsed and conversation took place about repairing it. Do you remember how that conversation played out about whether funds have been allocated towards its repair?
I can't remember if that was discussed. I know that they were, and we did check with Ari, but I think that the reason that I checked with Ari was because we had talked about it.
Right.
So I think the check-in with Ari was after that meeting.
Okay. And regardless of the minutes, just for a moment, we'll discuss the topic since we're on it. Do we know the current status? Has anyone confirmed that the roof has collapsed and whether it's currently being snowed into or?
I can't say that we have a confirmation, but at the time that I checked with Ari, he said that the funds had been allocated, that the roof had not collapsed, it was in bad shape, and that they were taking care of it.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it has been done, we don't know.
I would think it was, I've been to Betty's Neck an awful lot over this last year. I'd be quite surprised if the roof had caved in.
Okay.
I've looked
Well,
at
I
that.
thought a corner had. I don't think the whole roof was
A
down.
corner of it may have, but it certainly wasn't the whole roof.
Okay, right, yeah.
Does anyone feel like checking in on this issue with Ari in the next month just to confirm that we're not missing something like this?
Sure, I'll give him a call.
Okay, wonderful. And with that said, I'll just reiterate, I've changed the minutes to say it was reported that a corner of the Peach Barn roof had collapsed and conversation took place about repairing it. And I think that's good enough for me. With that said, we've made a few changes. Does anyone have any other comments or should we vote to confirm them as amended?
We haven't discussed December yet, am I right?
No, we're still on October.
Okay,
I'm making a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
A second, Brian?
All right, great. Any other conversation about it? Nothing heard. We'll do a roll call vote. I see. So you indicate whether you're for or against confirming as amended. Gary?
I have to abstain because I wasn't a member in October.
That's great. Thank you for reminding me of that. So it's only myself, Fred, Brian, and Mike who in fact can vote. And so Fred,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Mike,
aye.
and myself, aye. Those minutes are accepted as amended. So we'll now move on to the November minutes. I'll open the floor to anyone who has any edits they would like to suggest.
Again, no edits, but I just want to remind everybody that Helen asked for a list of maps, and I don't think that we have given her a list. This is Helen from Serpent. I don't think we have given her a list yet.
Okay. What I will do is this list of maps was in relation to the open space plan.
Yes,
So what I will do is take a note here within the agenda and we can come back to this topic in perhaps 10 minutes or so. So I'll write Helen maps. Any adjustments or edits to be made to the November minutes? I'll give another opportunity before we close it out. All right. Hearing nothing and having no edits myself, I'll entertain any motion to accept these minutes.
Make a motion to accept?
All right, I heard Brian
I'll second.
and Liz a second. And so what we have here is myself, Fred, Liz, Brian, and Mike were in attendance. I do see, Gary, you were in attendance. I believe this was the meeting in which you were voted in. And so perhaps just for simplicity, we'll ask you to abstain. And so
No problem.
I'll ask Fred for your vote, whether to accept the minutes as amended.
I accept.
Liz,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Mike?
aye.
All right, and myself, aye. Unanimously, the November minutes have been accepted. And now for December. I myself have no edits to suggest, and I'll ask if anyone else does.
Nothing here.
Nope.
All right. In that case, I see here that it was myself, Liz, Gary, and Mike. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I move to accept.
Thank
I'll
you, Liz.
second.
And seconded, we'll go roll call. So Liz, would you approve the minutes?
Yes. Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Mike,
Okay.
and myself, aye. December minutes have been accepted. Look at that, a quarter of a year done in 10 minutes. Wonderful. We're finally caught up. Really happy about that. We'll try not to let it get out of hand like that again in the future. And so those were the minutes, and now we'll move to what I've indicated on the agenda as old business. And the first and foremost item is the open space plan and any updates we have. I do have an update of my own. I have completed the survey write-up. And so those of you who were here at the time will remember that I presented a slide deck that went through the survey results with containing questions such as about the open space properties that residents know about, the properties that residents actually use and how frequently they do so, the various reasons for protecting open space and how much residents agree with those reasons, how often people engage in certain recreational activities in town, how satisfied residents are with those activities in town, suggesting opportunities for improvements to those opportunities in town, opinions about the Lakeville Hospital Site redevelopment project, opinions about adopting the Community Preservation Act in town, and how to use Community Preservation Act funds if accepted. I've shared this draft out with the group. I believe this will form the primary area within section 7, the analysis of needs within the open space plan. And we don't need to get into the weeds about any kind of revisions here today. We can do that offline. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that this section has been worked on. I'm aware of the fact that this section is not just the survey. As a matter of fact, in 2012, the last plan we had, there was also a significant section on the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which is not something I had thought much about until I had noticed that. So I'm going to spend some time thinking about what that entails for us. Is there a more recent statewide plan that needs to be reviewed in this section? And so I have a bit more homework to do on that. That's my update for the survey section. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Well,
You
yes,
did a great job.
Thank you.
I would second that. Certainly would. Very impressive. I do have one concern, and I can't remember. One of the values of personally for open space is diversity and abundance of wildlife, and I don't know that in any way came up in your survey.
Indirectly it did. Well, let me see if I can pull it up. Bear with me for one moment. Okay, so I have the survey in front of me. I won't share my screen, but I will just try to quickly find anything relevant. There was one question that said, below are listed several potential reasons for protecting open spaces in Lakeville. Please indicate how much you do or do not personally care about each reason. One of the options there was protecting wildlife and its habitat. And so that doesn't speak to the concept of diversity, but I think it is indirectly related. And just going by memory, I do believe that there was strong support for that item. I believe there was also another item where we asked, please select which recreation activities below you or someone in your household does or would like to engage in. One of those items was wildlife observation / bird watching / nature photography. That's probably the most relevant one here. And that one also was considerably selected. As a matter of fact, looking at the graphs on my page here.
Who's third from the top?
Is it? Okay. Let's see. Right, yeah, exactly. For the satisfaction level, it was the third most satisfying activity to residents. So that's good to see.
Thanks, Adam. I couldn't remember it, and I just didn't have enough time this just now to double check. So thank you.
Right. Well, I do think that there's, room for improvement the next time this is done, because there were no questions about diversity. And I think diversity itself is a very important concept. And I won't preach to the choir here, but species are being extinguished left and right at a rapid pace. So it is a very important issue. And unfortunately, diversity as a concept did not come into the survey, but yes, very important. Any other comments or questions about the survey before we move on to other updates?
Adam, I was listening to you, but I may not have been paying as close attention as I should have been. Is this something, the results of which we want to get up on the website as soon as possible? Get up on the town site?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we spoke about that last month. We do. I won't speak for everyone here. I do think that it's a good idea to distribute these results. People, 1,000 residents in town, 10% of town,
Exactly.
volunteered their time to answer the survey. So I think, distributing the results and letting the results be known is important.
So it's not as hard as it sounds to attach it to our page of the town website.
Great.
So if you shoot me a clean copy,
Okay.
you know what I mean when I say clean, just nothing, not in.
So this is something that you'll take the lead on this then?
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful.
Totally. Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'll send that to you this week.
Yep. Sounds good. The only thing I'd want to talk about is is there an introductory paragraph that I should put on the front page? Because it'll be a link to the page. So some sort of verbiage for.
Sure. Yeah, we can create something like that pretty quickly.
All right. Something brief. Yeah. I mean, it has to be brief. Okay. Thanks.
All right, so that's the survey section. As I said, just to reiterate, I still have some homework to do about what else needs to go in the section 7 analysis of needs. And once I've figured that out, I can move on to another section and help out. So moving on, there are many other sections being worked on right now. I have put together a broad update subsection titled Mike, Fred, and Liz updates. Please feel free to distribute speaking time however you like. What have you been up to?
Okay, I took a look at the growth section. I said I would grasp that. Unfortunately, that's a nightmare. I think Mike found out that when she was working on it. And it turns out when you look at the data, you start analyzing and collecting data from various different places, lots of things don't jive. They don't correlate. The town annual plan has information having to do with growth. And even that, when I look at it and compare it to other data, it looks like it's wrong. So what I'm recommending is that this one section should be thrown over to Serpid and say, can you guys, just do this section for us? Because we don't have the data and I don't know where to get it. I spent hours and hours looking through various different organizational structures and places, and you find different information at different places. I went and I didn't sit with him. Over the phone, I sat with Nate. He did send data on that housing, which I thought the graph that he provided was fantastic. He sent it to you too, Mike. Did you get that? Yeah, I heard she's nodding yes. That means she's got it. So I'm just thinking that that's one of those sections that, we could use some help on, or somebody else may be willing to take a crack at it, because I put tables together and I looked at other tables and they're wrong. They're not connecting. They're not correlating. I can't get them to jive. And
Can you be, sorry to interrupt you, Fred.
Yeah.
Could you just be specific about what exact data you're referencing? Is it population data? Is it demographic?
all populate all of the things that are in that growth and development section, patterns and trends, that whole section that talks about the development structure, current state of development. And the one that's the hardest one in my mind. See if I can find it here again a second. I can't find it.
If you'd like a moment, we could come back.
Yeah, just recent development trends and current state of development, looking at the number of acres of land that are open space, how many acres of land are in different categories.
Mhm.
And I couldn't put it together.
Do we know how that data was found for the last update? What we accepted as the source of truth last time around?
Of course, I don't know, but because I wasn't here, but
Right.
I'm guessing that Serpent had a lot to do with it.
Actually, I don't think that's what it did. There is a bibliography at the end of the text, which would indicate some of the sources. Tables ought to have a source written underneath them. I can't remember if they do or not. Now, I changed some data in that section, and I did annotate the data. I did give the references.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Adam.
Go ahead, Liz.
So of course, anytime you look for information, the information is going to be dated. You know, they did that. Some port department in town did their numbers in 2017, and some other department did their numbers in 2020. Is that what's affecting some of it, you think, Fred, or?
Well, it could be part of that.
Because things have picked, I don't know this, I'm guessing this is anecdotal from driving around, that development has picked up in the last 5 years. So maybe the numbers are just changing so fast that there's no one place to, even Serpent's numbers are going to be based on when they did their research for the
Well,
master.
One thing we do have that would be accurate would be Nate's figures that talk about, that tell us how many units, that would be dwelling units, that individual houses, or if it's a duplex, that would probably count as two. How many housing units were approved?
Were
Yes.
approved, Mike?
I'm sorry, I know, I knew you'd step on that. I don't know if it was approved or actually constructed, completed. I'm not sure.
Maybe we need to.
But
Occupancy permits.
what does it say?
Occupancy.
Permits?
Occupancy permit, because
Okay.
that tells when the house is done and people have now
Okay.
moved in.
Okay.
Maybe we just need to pick a year and move from there. Like anything that.
That's probably the best way. Just pick
You know,
one point in time, but you'd like to make sure everybody agrees.
You're
And
not
so-
going to fix that, Fred.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
need to pick a date, and I don't know, this kind of, to me, this brings up an interesting point though, because the years 2019, 2020, 2021 are very, very violently different years.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have specific information for each one of those years now from Nate. And prior to that, we had the same information that was taken from the town reports.
well, one of the things that I could do is I could put together what I have now, what I think is the best, and send it out and let people take a look at it and see what they think.
Could we possibly meet in person again? like
Yeah,
soon? And because it is very hard to actually compare the different
exactly. Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'm sure we could use the library again. They're very, very receptive.
Sure. I encourage you to whatever extent you're comfortable, feel free to meet up and work on the sections, and we can discuss it at next month's meeting.
You comfortable with that, Liz?
Let me know. I'm only available Monday and Tuesday.
I know.
So just Sure, of course.
So we
Right.
can bounce emails back and forth about a time.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the name of that section was again, Fred?
There was growth and development patterns.
Okay. Were there any other updates from either Liz or Mike?
I was focusing on trying to get the right information so that I could learn how to do the town website. I'll be honest with you.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I've been focused on.
Mike?
Good.
Thank you very much, Liz, for that link to the tour of the site. I haven't had a chance to do it yet, but
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you don't have the details on how to do it. It looks confusing, but once you have a couple of details, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's yeah, it's actually very well done. I can see why the town chose that software to run the website.
Okay. Mike, did you have any other updates to provide about the plan for this month?
I wish I did, but I don't.
Okay. We'll move to the historical geographical section updates. Would either Brian or Joan like to speak to those sections?
Okay, Brian, I recently did a talk and a tour with LakeCAM, and we went around to open space sites and town parks and conservation areas, and I talked about the history and resources that are available for the public in the town, and that should be on LakeCAM pretty soon.
That's awesome.
Oh. What is it called? How do we find it?
I don't know. I have to find out, but I mean, LakeCAM would know.
Okay.
I was not the one who worked on that, but I can speak to Craig. I'm sure he's still working on editing it. So hopefully soon.
All right. Well, I definitely will put that on the agenda for next month to follow up with either Kevin or Craig from LakeCAM about how to watch that video.
That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Kevin. All right. That's great to hear, Brian.
Yeah.
Joan, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I think I've given Mike all the updates for the historical section, so I think they're all set to go.
Great.
They have been typed in, yes.
Wonderful. And so that was for the historical, you said. Was there anything that we should know about for the geographical section, or is that pretty much well and good already?
Is that to me or to Joe?
Let's go with you.
Well, I thought Joan had updated it.
I've been working on the geographical part. I've also started to go around to the scenic vistas, but I think I really need to wait until spring because you have to see how many degrees are available for open space for viewing. So it's a little difficult now with all the trees down and all the leaves off the trees to see what's what. But I started in the fall and I'll finish it in the spring, which is coming hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. So next month we'll. It sounds like the historical is pretty much done. The
It's all
scenic
done.
vistas is gonna wait. And the geographical is that done or is that in
I'll have
progress?
another look at it and see what's left to do.
Okay. Great. And Gary, I believe last month we discussed that you'd kind of look over the plan and see if there's anything that stuck out to you as something you could perhaps contribute to. Have you any ideas about where
Well,
we could get your help?
I guess so I don't like either step on someone's toes or overlap. What really needs, I need kind of a list of what needs to be dolled up or what you'd like me to look at so I'm not being redundant on what someone else has done. Like I've already heard some history stuff's done and et cetera.
Right.
Gary, did we send to you the parts that had been mostly updated? Because we had a lot of work has been done on part 3. Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's a bit
Yeah.
muffled. We can hear you.
Yeah.
We have worked on section 3, 4, and 5, which are all background type of things. And what you should be looking at is the sections that we have already worked on.
Right.
I guess it's not a bad idea to also read the old stuff too, just to see what we changed, but that's a lot of reading.
So right now, sections 3, 4, and okay. What's posted online and it hasn't been revised, so could I get a hold of what you guys have worked on?
Mike, you probably need to send him because you have the latest.
I could send you that. Of course, we will be, Fred and Liz and I will be working on especially the population, the demographic changes. But I will send you what we have done.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it.
Paul, it's not a very clean copy.
That's okay.
Well, the fact that it's not a clean copy is actually why we really need your help with it, Gary, because I think it's been kind of edited so much that I think right now kind of making some kind of group decisions about let's say this is good and let's kind of move on and accept those changes and turn it into a clean copy, one that has already been agreed on. I think, to my mind, that's the big thing that needs to be done still. Because I know Mike and Fred have done so much work on it, but I do think that Mike and Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, you consider it still a work in progress. I think, Gary, you could help kind of polishing it off, so to speak, so that we can kind of put it behind us.
Sure,
Mike,
I
can you
needed my
send that to
marching
me,
orders,
too?
so I have them.
I'm sorry, Gary, could you say again, and then I'll ask Joan what she said?
Yeah, well, you just gave me my marching orders, which I needed, so great.
Perfect. Joan?
I was just asking Mike if she could send it to me too, so I can have a look at it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just keep in mind, it still is a work in progress. And I will send it with some notes about some of the things that you need to ignore.
Okay.
I have a comment that you mentioned that Mike and Liz and I would meet, but I think anybody who wants to come and help with us is welcome. I think I'll leave it up to Liz and Mike to pick a date. I'm open any Monday and Tuesday for I don't know how long. So anybody pick a time and date and let us know, and I'll set up the appointment with the library and we can meet.
If we have more than 3 people meeting, does that then make us a quorum so that we have to make it?
There's that.
Well, I think we have an exception. I think that the exception is if you're working on a project, it's not necessary to have a public meeting, because essentially you're working on a project. And I think this is a project.
We would never finish if we had a public joining us.
My understanding of it is that we would need to be clear that anything that is done outside of a public meeting has to be brought to the public meeting and then clarified for the public. So if you're going to, for example, make many changes, what we'll do is we'll make sure those changes are available to the public before they are concluded. And in that way, we can kind of be true to our purpose here.
But we're not making any changes. We're updating the current document. So the public will get a chance to look at the document when it's completed. So it just seems to me to be a moot point that if you're out there digging, I'll take a rough example. If you're out there digging holes, you don't want the whole public to participate. So that's a far right kind of a comment, but this is similar. We're out doing work, and I don't think we need the public to participate with us doing work.
Well, the public should know that they are completely available and open to join this process. It is a public process. So if anyone wants to send an email to myself, to the committee, LakevilleOpenSpace@gmail.com, you can get invited to this process and be a part. And so it is not a private endeavor. It's very much open. But Fred, what you're saying is people aren't going to want to do that. So that's probably true. Well,
but you make a good point, which I didn't think about earlier. And that is, if we just go ahead and send a notice out to the public saying the Open Space Committee is updating the open space plan, and any member of the public of Lakeville members, citizens want to participate, please let us know. We can welcome him in, and they can take a section and start working on it.
Sure.
Well, isn't that basically what Joan's doing with us, actually?
That is, yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, so yes, indeed, if anybody wants to help, we could use it.
And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we'll just be clear that in meetings where we do achieve a quorum that are not part of this public meeting, that you'll constrain your conversations to the open space plan
Right.
and other topics.
Correct.
And with that, we'll move on. So that was the open space plan. I look forward to going over it again next month. I have a section here titled New Business, and I've titled it All Other Topics because at the time of the agenda writing, there was nothing else that came to my mind. Since then, 3 other topics have come up. You know what? I want to pause and just go back because I'm noticing a note that I gave myself from earlier this meeting. I put Helen Maps. I believe this came up in the discussion of the minutes. Helen Zinkavage, I believe. Can someone jog my memory why I wrote that note?
Because we had talked about needing to, Helen is the representative of Serpent that we would be working with.
Yeah.
And we, when we met with Helen, we talked about the main thing that we needed was updated maps, and we were to give her a list of the maps that we wanted updated.
Right. And to my memory, I believe she said that each map, of which I believe there would be dozens, would take 4 hours each. And we, I think, have 20 hours maximum. So to my mind, it's not a realistic ask. I think that, and just speaking as my own opinion, there's really no way to make that work. We can get 5 maps from her and then have, 15 or more maps that just don't get updated. That's not really gonna work. So instead, perhaps we could table the maps discussion for now. Perhaps we should be using Serpent's help for example, the section that Fred has said we need some help with updating the statistics. That might be something where we could use their help in a more feasible way. What do you think?
Adam, we have to have updated maps though in this plan.
We do. Can I interrupt?
Yes.
So you know how Joan's come on and she's like, I can do the geology. And Gary's new, we're not even positive. And Fred, a lot of people have come on very recently. Mike, I think that if we reached out to the town, we might actually find somebody who has skills with this type of thing, who might give us some time to help us with these maps for free.
So this is a great point that you're bringing up, and I think that now's a relevant time to bring up a related issue, which is that I was contacted today by the new town planner. His name is Mark Resnick, and he's looking forward to working with us. He said that he has contributed to the updating of 2 open space plans in the past. So I think that with his background and his willingness to help us out, we could approach him with our map problem, and perhaps he might be able to help us with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The town planner, I think, was one of the primary requests from the master plan workshops, and I'm really happy to see that has happened. I've invited him to next month's meeting, and so we'll be able to discuss that with him then.
That's pretty cool, right, Mike?
Yes, I would say though, Adam, I don't think that there are dozens of maps that need to be updated. Some of them we could take from the master plan. Some of them don't need updating because they. I'd have to look at the maps themselves, but I don't think there are dozens of them.
I agree. I agree with you. I have a copy. I made a list of all the maps, and there's just maybe a half a dozen that really are significant that maybe we want to change or look at to see if they need change. But there's a lot of them that just superficial geology. I can't imagine that's going to change. That's an example. So there's a bunch of those like that that are not going to change. But that's something maybe we can go through when we meet again and make a list of ones we really think. We go through the book ourselves and say, yeah, we don't think it's going to change. You and I and Liz and Gary and Brian and anybody else who wants to help. And we can create that list pretty easy, I think.
we should be looking at the master plan and see if some of the
Yes.
maps that they have also still are relevant. Even
Yeah,
though
you bet.
some of them
You
may be 2 years old, but
You bet.
Great.
I'm in a swivel. I'm in a swivel chair.
Keep
Oh.
showing off. All right, that's wonderful. So we'll talk more about maps next month with Mark Resnick, and we'll focus on that conversation then.
Cool.
Okay, so the next item in the new business was open space definition. Fred, I think you brought this up. Is there anything you want to? How would you like to frame the conversation?
Well, I think Gary had mentioned it in one of the emails that we really should have something that what we consider to be open space, because as I looked through it and I went through, I became a member of the Massachusetts. I'm having trouble speaking. Mike probably is a member, the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, and I looked for a definition in that document, and it's very, very broad. And you look at the Massachusetts open space plan, and their definition is very broad. I just think we need to pick something. Do we say playgrounds are open space? Do we say schools are open space? We need to know what we're talking about when we say open space. And one of the other ones that come up, the comments that come up is, should it be open to the public or not? Should open space be open to the public? Because some of the definitions that I've come across that says open space is space that's open to the public. Well, we have some places that's open space, and I think, Joan, your property could be considered open space, but it's not open to the public.
Correct.
So we need to define what it is we're talking about when we say open space.
So you need like a mission statement, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. I looked up some towns, in the area. I had some time. Lexington, for instance, they just call themselves land stewardship managers. That's it. They don't do an open space committee. Wareham, it's just open space and playgrounds. So they're very, very broad too. So we're not the only ones.
That's true.
Middleborough doesn't have one. Taunton doesn't have one. So
Mike took a crack at open space, and she bulletized a lot of the things that we ought to be considered part of open space. And I think that the definition that I dragged out of, now I don't remember where, includes almost all of those things that you put in your plan or your bulletized list, Mike. And it would just put it into kind of like a paragraph format. Open space is land that is not intensively developed for residential, commercial, industrial, or institutional use. It is publicly or privately owned. It includes agriculture, forest land, wetlands, undeveloped shorelands, undeveloped scenic lands, public parks, and preserves. It also includes water bodies such as lakes and bays. A vacant lot, community garden, or small marsh is defined as open space. A narrow corridor or a pathway for walking or bicycling is open space, even though it is surrounded by developed areas. Historic and archaeological sites are identified as open space, period. I mean, that kind of like says everything that Mike listed in her bullets, but in a paragraph format. What do you think?
I just always have to, being in the devil's advocate type of human being, I just always have to say, like, the more you define something, the less, the less leeway you have. So I like the wide open definitions because you never know what's coming at you in the future.
Okay.
And I like that. I liked what I heard, but what I'm trying to say is, if the more you define it, if you go forward, somebody will say, but this isn't open space because you didn't put it in your list.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say. I'm not sure.
Well,
Okay, this is Brian. I don't think we can tell people where archaeological sites are if they involve Indian sites, because to find that kind of information, you have to go to the Indian tribes or to the Mass Historical Commission, and they would want to know why you want the information.
That's a really interesting point, Brian. I'd like to ask kind of a a question that maybe gets kind of at the heart of the issue. Do we consider the Indian burial ground? Is that the term? Indian graveyard, Indian cemetery?
Can we say Native American, guys?
I'm sorry, you're right. That's more appropriate.
Sorry.
The Native American graveyard that's near Betty's Neck. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to, but I can't remember exactly geographically where it is.
Royal Wampanoag Cemetery.
Thank you.
It was made it was put on the National Register about 40 years ago, before they came out with definition of what you could tell the public about archaeological sites.
So would we consider
Maybe 50 years ago?
Would we consider that cemetery an open space land?
All cemeteries are considered open space.
Okay.
So long as
Well-
we do not have to list every single marsh and so forth in the plan. That's,
Well, we may have to. If I believe there is a map that at least says that it lists all open space properties, and maybe that's one way of making this discussion more concrete rather than being conceptual. We are going to want to, I would imagine, show on a map where all the open space properties are. Now, it's easy to do that if you specifically reference town-owned land or state-owned land. I don't know to what extent we have a list of all private properties that are open space land.
well, we have a long list of ones that are considered significant. But significant is not defined.
Right. So Fred, this was your topic. How do you want to proceed here?
I think we should continue investigating it. Let's, everybody takes a crack at looking someplace to find a definition they think might be suitable. Write it down and send it off in an email to everybody. We'll put a whole list of different definitions, and maybe in a week or two, we'll come up with one that we like, or a month or two. I
Well,
forgot
what are we
only
trying
meet
to
once a month.
accomplish with this definition? I mean,
Well, when I first got on the open space committee and I picked up the open space plan, the first thing that came to my mind is, well, what is open space? And do we consider playgrounds open space? Do we consider water bodies open space? There was a document that I came across that said water bodies are not considered open space. Other places it was considered open space. So it got me confused as to what should be listed as open space. And like I said earlier, one of the documents said it has to be open to the public. Well, some of the places that we have as open space are not open to the public, and that's okay if that's what we define as open space. But we have to have a baseline for us to say this is what we consider open space.
but our baseline is based on what we want to do with the open space. So if we're trying to prove that we're lacking open space in Lakeville, that you would want to define open space as things that are owned and are paid attention to or belong to the town and the state. If you wanted to say there's lots of open space in Lakeville as of January 2022, then you'd want to define open space as the open spaces that private individuals haven't developed. So before you come up with a definition, you need to know what you're going to use the definition for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
So it isn't just let's draw a baseline so we can, it's what baseline are we trying to draw, because what are we trying to do with our definition? What does this definition do for us?
It's a very good point, Liz, and I would recommend that we use the answer that we come up with to help structure the map. Now that might be a very small scale reason for doing it, but I think that it's important that we have a map or at least a list that shows all open space properties in town. So if we keep that as our purpose, maybe that can provide some structure for as we kind of come up with the definition. We're going to want to indicate these are open spaces and these are not.
Well, you're
That's
saying
good.
we're gonna define, like, there's open space that's privately owned, there's open space that's town owned, there's open space that's state owned, there's open space that's publicly accessible, there's open space that is not publicly accessible.
I think
Per-
that all of you
Personally,
need to
that
take
sounds
a
great.
look.
What'd you say, Mike?
I think you all need, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think you all need to take a look at that table 8 that exists in the old plan. Ignore whether or not it says the property is permanently protected or not. That is a list that was made of properties that were considered significant open space. What is not included, and it says so at the bottom of the list, the chapter lands that are in forestry and agriculture are not listed because there are too many of them. That list is something that is available, and I actually have a list that was up to date last year. I don't know if there may be some properties that have already been taken out, but that is a list that the assessors have and have made it available to us.
Right.
So we have those lists.
Mhm.
That word
Yeah,
significant is something that, I mean, significant to me would mean properties that we want to pay attention to. They're already, maybe they're permanently protected. We just want, so we want people to know that they're there. But if they're not permanently protected, then we want to evaluate whether or not that is a goal to get them permanently protected.
Right. All right. Just in the interest of making things kind of keep moving forward, I think that we will bring this up again next month and we can kind of continue the discussion. And so everyone will have some homework about thinking about how we want to resolve this. And
I think we should think about it. Everybody needs to think about it. I like what Liz is saying. I mean, you have to wonder what you're going to use it for. I guess my coming as an engineering background, we like definitions, you know, scientists. That's what happens. But there is a map, and it's on page 103 of the old plan that shows all the open space parcels in the town. So that one is going to have to get updated eventually. But and then, like I said, what do we add in there that's open space?
Or what do we take out?
Or what do we take out? Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Okay,
and that's
can I make a request? Sorry.
I don't have my.
Oh, yeah,
plan.
sure.
go ahead, Brian.
How does it define
Okay.
open space on that page?
We have a town planner. Why don't we ask him to come to a meeting and maybe he can give us some definitions of what he would regard?
That's a great question. That's a great point. He will be at next month's meeting. And so we'll bring that up to him then.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mike, what did you say? It kind of got buried.
Well, I just, Fred, no, we don't have to discuss this now. Never mind.
All right. So yes, I think a lot of things will be clarified next month when we get to meet Mark Resnick. And so we'll leave that for then. We'll move on now to committee liaisons. We have the Historical Commission going first.
Well, I'm doing a talk for the Lakeville Historical Society on January 26th. It'll be at the Lakeville Senior Center at 7 o'clock. It'll be on the history of Lakeville Hospital.
Wow.
Really?
Mike, what day was that? I mean, Brian, what day was that again?
January 26th at 7 at the
Yeah.
Senior Center.
Well,
And also,
go ahead.
I have to get in contact with the Massachusetts Historical Commission about houses over 50 years old that are on a list or map or something to go over it.
Right. I do believe you've mentioned that one before. I'm
Yeah,
very interested
They
in.
never called me back.
Brian,
So-
when was the last time you checked with the senior center? Because I thought that they were not allowing meetings in there during this period of COVID.
Well, I don't know. We haven't, nobody's checked for about a month. I'll have to check again.
I think the
Yeah.
newsletter said the COA is closed to the public right now. So I actually have a meeting about the Historical Society programs tomorrow, so we'll have a better answer for that. I'm meeting with Jerry tomorrow, Brian.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think the history of the Lakeville Hospital site is really interesting, and hopefully, is it too late to ask LakeCAM to cover? 'Cause I
They
think that
usually
would be
do.
really interesting to a lot of people. Do they? Well, yeah, I'd love to find out about that. And I think we should just have LakeCAM follow you around and just record as much as they can, because it seems like there's a lot of good stuff that you have to share.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you one thing, that listening to Brian talk about historical Lakeville is worth the effort.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian. We'll move on to the Assawamsett Ponds Complex.
I guess that's me.
Yes.
I really have nothing to report. I am very guilty of having mistaken the date and went to the wrong meeting and then forgot when it was the next week. So I am guilty. Nothing to report.
That's all right. We'll learn more next month. How about the future CPC, or the Community Preservation Commission?
CPA.
Right. So if the CPA is adopted, then there will be a CPC, and there are a group of people who would form that CPC, and you would be our representative to it. So
Maybe.
So what would you update us with?
Well, they of course it has to pass on the ballot in April. I forget exactly. We have the date, but I don't remember exactly what it is. But they are trying to plan activities now and practice ways to keep it on people's minds, and to get a large group of voters to come out. Right now, they have one activity planned. It's a sort of a kind of a festival outdoors sort of thing, in late afternoon with a fire pit, rather, not a fire, but a fire pit, and various activities at Ted Williams Camp. That would take place in March. There will have to be phone calls made. There will have to be a video is being created. Brochures are being created that we will be an updated brochure that we will be passing out. So it's a matter of just keeping it in front of everybody and making sure people really understand what it is, so they can make up their minds if they're going to support it or not. My understanding, Adam, is that just reading your analysis of the survey, you told people that none of their information would be used, would be shared. Am I right?
So the survey was done completely confidentially. The only information that was accepted was addresses, so that someone could receive the raffle prize. And so I sent out a letter to addresses, to one address, informing that household that they had won the survey lottery. The exception there is that after the CPA question was asked, I specifically mentioned that this was optional. You know what? I should probably, just because we're talking about it, make sure I have the exact wording in front of me. But while I pull that up, essentially it said, "Would you like to receive information about the CPA?" And that was an email address and intake form, which was noted to be optional. Let's see if I can.
So those email addresses can be used by this committee to just, because what we talked about it, we didn't want to bombard people with emails, but a few days before the election, we wanted to send out a reminder.
Yes, so it absolutely can be, because the question states, and I quote, optional. If you would like to receive future communications about the Community Preservation Act in Lakeville, please add your email address below. And so
Perfect.
those email addresses are only to be used to communicate about the Community Preservation Act, and there are no other emails that we have access to. So only people who opted in would receive that communication. And I do
Perfect.
believe that people can opt out if they receive an email that they would prefer not to have.
Okay, thank you so much. for
That's
clarifying.
cool. Mike, they should do more than just a few days before the vote though, because I get email and I'll look at it for a month. So
So you're thinking like
I think every 2 weeks they should probably throw something out there. Coming up
Really?
on the vote
you
every
think
2
that would
weeks.
annoy?
Sorry?
You don't think that would annoy?
No, not with, I have 6,000 emails in my inbox. You think that's funny? But seriously, and it's, I mean, it's clutter, it's disgusting, and we all know that. But at the same time, you need to be present in the clutter so that people don't forget you exist. Because you throw one email out there and somebody misses it once, that's nothing.
Okay,
Nothing.
I hear
You
you.
missed them completely.
I'll pass that message on.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
So anything else about the CPA, Mike, or should we move on?
Move on.
All right. And so we have the Conservation Commission with Fred.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting for a couple of, we had one yesterday. It was the first one in about a month. And the only thing, and that was just about a certificate of compliance, so it was nothing associated with us. But Nancy Yates had mentioned that there is a landowner that is interested in putting a piece of property in a conservation restriction and wanted to know if the Conservation Commission would accept that piece of property. Now, again, it's just my ignorance of the town because I'm so new. I don't know exactly where it is. So next week sometime, Nancy is going to take me out there and show me where this property is. But initially, the Conservation Commission doesn't seem to be too anxious to take this property over. So we'll have to see what it is and continue that conversation.
So I'm just naive about this topic. Why wouldn't the Conservation Commission simply accept any property that was offered?
It's called work. It requires
Well,
work.
you don't want something that's landlocked. I don't think.
It's on Nelson Grove somewhere, Brian. Near Nancy's house. I'm not sure exactly where it is.
Right, off of Bedford Street. Okay.
So the issue, Fred, is that
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we'll return right back to you, Brian. The issue, Fred, just to clarify, is that there's work involved in.
Well, you have to go through the process.
Maintaining property,
It has to be recorded on the deed that there's a conservation restriction on it. And so there's a legalese that has to get put together in the document. It has to be a baseline has to be created to show what the property is, where it is, why it's important for it to be a conservation restriction. And in addition to that, then literally once a year, someone who's a member of the organization that accepted the property, here would be the Conservation Commission, an individual has to go out and should walk the property and make sure there are no violations to the restrictions and write a small report that gets filed away as part of the property. So that's a certain amount of work that has to get done and somebody's got to do it. Land trusts do this, but they have a fair number of memberships who are willing to participate and do these processes. So, and I think, again, I've only been a member of the Conservation Commission for a couple of months, which means no more than a couple of meetings. Mike has been a member of the Conservation Commission longer than God, maybe not that long. But at any rate, it does require people to do some work. And I think the members of the Conservation Commission today aren't all that excited about getting involved in taking over a piece of property. And I think that Nancy said she looked at Wildlands Trust and they weren't all that interested because it wasn't a piece of property that had significant resources that need to be protected. Now, I don't know what it is, so next week I'll take a walk out with Nancy. We'll take a look at it and we'll have a discussion. And I'll probably be able to give you more information the next meeting.
Great. Okay. So if I can recall, if I can remember this, and I'll take a note here, so I do. We'll discuss this property at the next month's meeting.
Sounds good.
Fred, did you, is it wise for you to give us the address? I would like to know where this property is.
I'll tell you, I don't know. I'm supposed to call Nancy sometime next week. And when I do, she'll tell me where it is. I'll send you an email, Mike, if you want to join us. Anybody else, that more than happy.
If I have time, I would like to.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Wear your fur coat or your
So
alternative.
we're going to
fur.
schedule it on a day it's going to be 50.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll work. All right. So that's it for the committee liaisons. I will move to the procedural details section, which is one item. An opening on the committee still exists following Donna's departure. So if anyone knows anyone else who would like to be the 7th member of our committee, please let them know to, send a letter to the to us or to the. I think they send it to town hall, right? To the Board of Selectmen's office, and it gets referred to us.
So
Well, if these positions are supposed to be advertised, now that we don't have a local paper, how are they advertised?
I actually think I saw a notice on the bulletin board in front of the town hall. Whether anybody goes
And I
by.
know, yeah, the
don't know.
town has put stuff on their Facebook and I think they put it on their website too, but I think they forget to mention the open space committee, and I guess that's just because we're not,
Picked up on it off the town website.
yeah.
Okay.
So Joan, you have no interest because I
I
thought
do. I'm
maybe.
thinking about coming back. Seriously.
Awesome.
You should come back. Yeah, make it
I'm thinking about it.
Awesome.
a solid quorum every time then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're already here so much, you may as well make it official. So
Well, and you have background like Mike does. It helps us not to be like, I mean, a bunch of us are quite new, and it's nice to have some institutional memory, if you will, stuff like that. Seriously, it is. It's good. It helps.
all right, and so I believe that will be it for this meeting. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to raise before we adjourn?
I just want to, for next week, maybe, I know we seem to have a lot and the town planner will be here, so maybe not next week, for next month, but maybe for the month after that. If people could take a look at our page of the town website and do your, in a perfect world, in my dreamland, I would like to see on that page links to this information from the open space committee. Did you hear that, Mike? Do you know what I mean? So you look at it and you'd be like, as a town person, if I went to my open space page of the town website, what would I like to be able to click on a link and be like, it would take me to number 1, Adam's survey that happened, right? Number 2, the open space plan, obviously, but maybe that you'd have a place where there'd be the whole open space plan, but maybe there'd also be links that would take you just to the map of open space in town, or a link that would take you to the places that are publicly accessible, the open spaces where we would like people to take a walk, like Betty's Neck, etc. But go look at it as just an average Joe kind of townsperson and be like, why can't I find X on this page?
Document that
And-
is the history of Betty's Neck, which I will try to get to you, but I'll have it in quick form.
You just faded out completely. Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
I will send you the history, one way or another, I'll get the history of Betty's Neck to you, which will be a document we should
Oh,
consider. putting
okay.
up.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be
cool.
great.
All right.
The latest open space plan is on the town website
It is.
somewhere. I can't remember why I found it. I did find it there, so.
See,
In the
that's
upper
disturbing,
left.
though, that you can't find it easily. You should be able to, it should be a no-brainer.
It's in the upper left corner.
Well, what?
That's where I found it.
We'll work on that, Gary. Like, I'm trying to make it more. Yeah, that's actually where I found it too. So you do have to actually be looking for, you need to be going to the page and be interested. But that's actually who we need to be communicating with. And there's probably more townspeople that are interested, but once you get there and then you pull up the open space plan and it's so, and I had mentioned this before, it's so dense. But we're going to work on that too. But that would be great if you could just go to it, go to the page and, you know, because there's other things too, not just the open space plan. Maybe you just want rivers you can kayak. I mean, maybe that's a link to a page that you'd be like, well, where can I go kayaking in Lakeville?
It's a great idea.
You know, or the link to what are they doing with the Nemasket River, the invasive species stuff, whatever it might be. You go to the open space page of the Town of Lakeville website. What do you expect to be able to find there? So that's where I'm at.
I think these are all great ideas, and maybe we should discuss the website as a potential goal for us in terms of something we actually put in the open space plan. I know there is a section about objectives and goals, and maybe having an up-to-date website would be something we could mobilize ourselves to do, so that people actually always have this resource available to them. I think that'd be great.
Last thing I want to say is that Liz, Mike, if anybody sends me an email, let me know what dates are good. We can start setting something up.
All right. Wonderful.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, second. So we'll do a roll call vote. I'll see your name. You'll indicate aye or nay. Gary.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Liz.
Aye.
Fred.
Aye.
And Brian.
Aye.
All right, unanimous, and we adjourn. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you.